Hey, morning, folks. I had a church meeting this morning that I thought was at 10, but it was actually at 9, so I missed it. So I've got time this morning to record. Naughty me. Okay, so another installment of the Red Book of Magic. This is probably going to be a long one because I want to get through P. It's only 3 pages, but there's also an M spell and an O spell, so we'll get things going. Okay, so N, as in November, Nightmare. Ooh, I forgot to mark if this was a new one or not. I think it is a new one, though. But anyway, well, it's got to be some moon rune. That tells you something, doesn't it? Okay, so must be cast on a sleeping, unconscious, or meditating target. Caster overcomes the target's power, and the target experiences a horrific nightmare. Once they awaken, they suffer from despair, which is on the Runequest book, page 236, which occurs if you fumble a passion inspiration roll, right? Okay, so they are at -10 for all abilities until the next time they go to sleep, fall unconscious, or meditate. Okay. Oath. This is an old one. Binds 2 or more people into a pact. Anyone who breaks the oath receives the attack of the Sever Spirit spell, which is if you fail the power versus power roll, you die. Only it's not power in this case, it's magic points, right? Because the magic points that are boosted, doesn't say that, but you boost the spell with magic points. You know, it doesn't say here, but I would assume that all of the people in this binding, you know, every point you stack adds a person, those people can also add magic points to it. So that'll increase the magic points available for the Sever Spirit attack. Okay. So it must be boosted with magic points, and it equals the total magic points placed into the oath. Okay. For each point stacked, in the oath, you get an additional participant. Participants do not need to be Humaki. This is a Humaki spell. Okay. P spells. Pain Tooth. New. Cast upon a weapon. Any hit that penetrates armor, so you do a point of damage, although you could question what if it does 0 points of damage, right? Because you get a magical effect. The magical effect is that the location is incapacitated. So each melee, but however, each melee around the victim of the attack, I guess is a way of putting it, can make a Constitution ×2 roll in order to recover from that incapacitation. It says the target, but they mean the victim because the target is the weapon. The victim that has been affected by several locations being affected by Pain Tooth still only need to make a single Constitution ×2 roll, and then all of the incapacitations are freed. Okay, Panic, old spell. You overcome the target's power, and they are seized by overpowering terror. Good to go. Cannot cast any spells. They cannot attack in melee. Does that mean they can attack with a ranged weapon? I don't think so. Not if you're really panicked. However, or says though, they can parry or dodge normally. And I would really question that as well. If you're panicked and you've got your shield, if you don't run away, you're just going to duck down and hide behind your shield. That's not parrying. Okay, Passage, old spell. Opens any locked, barred, or magically sealed aperture. Remember that lock spell we talked about earlier? So when cast, the person or persons, because you can stack this to add people, they get stacked with the passage spell, must be present laying their hands on the opening while the spell is cast. Each point of the passage stacked, because they don't say stacked here, allows one person to pass through or open the magically affected aperture, because it could be a bag or a box or something, right? Lasts 8 weeks, just like the lock spell. Is often used with a lock spell. If it's not used with a lock spell, what's the use of it? This allows the caster to allow specific individuals to have access through that passage or access to that container. Okay, Pathwatch, old spell. This spell is used while traveling through dangerous or questionable territory. Must be cast on a known path or visible road on which the caster is traveling. The spell then alerts the user or the caster to the direction and number of enemies and traps within a 100-meter radius. Spell lasts until the caster falls asleep or the path ends. Good to go. Very handy, especially to counter ambushes. Okay, Pathway, another old one. Allows the user to determine the direction of the nearest oasis. If 2 points are used, in other words, we're talking about stacking. If you stack this, you get the next closest, although they're using a 2 point, so they do specifically the second closest oasis, and then goes on to additional points. Again, stack, because they don't say that, increases the number of oases known. So, in other words, this spell, each point stacked with the spell increases the number of oases known based upon distance from the caster. Now, that's less than 3 sentences. Okay, only direction and relative distance. Closest, second closest, third closest, right? Not the actual distance. So you don't know if it's 1 day out or 10 days out. Peace. Another old spell. In fact, this is the last old spell. All the rest of the peace spells are new. Okay. Once cast, all persons not of Rune Master status within a 1 kilometer range must put away their weapons and forget all violence and war. They prefer to listen to the wonders of peace and love and can do no harm to others. Interesting. Okay. Plant Spy. Like I said, this is a new one. All the rest are new. Converts a plant into a remote spy. So the leaves of the plant can transmit sound and touch to the caster. So if you cast it on a branch that's going over a pathway, people move past the pathway and move the branch out of the way, you can actually count people, right? And if they're talking as they're going along, you can hear what they're saying as long as you're within, the normal speaking distance. That is cool. If you cut or uproot the plant, though, it dies. Okay, now you can cast this on multiple plants at the same time, but you can only receive information from one plant at a time. Plastron. The target's body receives a carapace or shell over their chest and abdomen. The spell must be boosted with magic points because the shell has 1 armor point per magic point boosted. Good to go. I like that. Plow. Bolsters the caster and any draft animals pulling a plow for 1 day. That allows them to plow normal or rocky land at quadruple normal rate, which is about 4 acres in 1 day. Okay. The plow is unharmed. We say that because later on things happen, right? So if you do this spell and then plow extremely rocky soil, normally not tillable, right? You move at normal speed, but it does 1d6 damage to the plow. You can actually plow solid stone with a spell that turns the solid stone into extremely rocky soil, but you can only do a 1/4 acre of land, and the plow at the end of the day will take 3d6 damage, which will probably destroy it. But that's wild. And has application to weapons and equipment if you've got a hat of land that's rocky soil, because there's effects for having rocky soil that doesn't produce as much. This would change that. Okay, Power Drain. The target of the spell gains the ability to drain magic points by touch. Like a vampire, maybe? I think they do that. Okay, you have to use your bare hand to do the touching, but you don't have to touch bare skin. It works through clothing and armor and stuff, right? Okay, when you touch the person, you touch the victim, right? When the target touches the victim has to make a power roll for each successful attack, each touch, right? Every time you touch someone, they have to make a power roll. If the victim is overcome, they lose 1d6 magic points, and the target of the spell, the guy who's touching, gains those magic points. That's pretty cool. I like that. You're allowed 1 magic point draining attack in a round. When the spell ends, the target loses any magic points in excess of their power. There is a Crimson Bat variant of the spell. The only difference is that the target, the one doing the touching, doesn't get the magic points. It goes straight to the Crimson Bat. Okay, Predict Weather. The caster knows the approximate natural weather for the next 24 hours. Does not include effects from the gods or from magic. Okay, Pregnancy. This spell enables the subject to bear, another target. The target is able to bear a child to term, even if that would not normally be physically possible. Do we have rules on menopause? I don't think so. Does that start when you start losing physical stats at 40? Maybe. Interesting idea. Okay, next spell. Preserve food. This spell affects 1 encumbrance worth of rations. Keeps it from spoiling ever. No, insects and mice and stuff can still get in it and do problems. For each point stacked with this spell, up to 5. Why 5 and not 4? We did 4 earlier. Why 5 now? Doubles the quantity of rations affected. So 2 points protects 2 encumbrance, 3 protects 4. You're doubling each time, right? Preserve weather. This spell must be cast on a 40 weather. Preserve wealth. Sorry. Must be cast on a 40-liter storage container, such as an amphora. Anything placed in the container, liquids, foodstuffs, other organic substances, right? Once it's sealed, which is part of this whole ritual, you seal the container, they remain unspoiled until the container is open. So the duration of the spell is until the container is opened, which forces the spell to end. Okay, so each point stacked with the spell to 5 again. What's the difference between 5 and 4 and why do we have limits in the first place? Doubles the maximum size of the storage container. Okay, produce light. This spell produces a circle of light as bright as clear summer day at noon. Pretty bright. The circle has a diameter of 100 meters per point. Stacked point of this spell. So if you did a 10 point, 10 room points worth of produced light, that's a kilometer radius? Diameter. A kilometer diameter circle of light. Okay. Project music. Spell increases the audible distance of the caster's voice or his instrument by 50%. You can stack this to 4 again. Why 4? I don't know. But for each point you stack, you can add either the caster's voice to the instrument, if you cast on the instrument initially, right? Or the caster's instrument to the caster's voice if you already cast on the voice. But what about 3 or 4 points? If you stack it with up to 4, does that mean there are a one-man band playing 3 instruments can sing along and get all of it going? Maybe. Okay. But in addition to the adding the vocals together, increases the distance by another 50%. So a 3-point spell increases the distance by 150%, your instrument, your voice, and another instrument if you're playing 2. Okay. Proliferate. It must be cast on a fertile, living thing. The next successful reproduction of that thing produces 1d6 times as many offspring as usual. So a woman would give birth to 1d6 children instead of just 1. A dog would give birth to 76 puppies instead of 6 to 8. An apple tree, which produces a few hundred fruit, would produce 1,000. This abundance, however, is not without cost. The product, or the product of the spell is smaller and usually inferior. So if it was a dog, all the puppies would be runs. With an apple tree, the crop would have many cull or puny apples. Proteus must be cast after the meld form ritual, which we talked about earlier, right? Where you sacrifice an animal so you can now take its form. This is a spell used to take that form. Okay. Now it's cast to change shape to that other living being that was sacrificed. Remember that word that was established during the ritual. Okay. The user's intelligence, charisma, and power. Don't we normally say intelligence, power, charisma? No, maybe I'm picky. Do not change. All the other characteristics become identical to the creature used, in other words, sacrificed in the meld form spell. Okay. You can also use any special innate powers of that creature. So if it was a jackal bear, you could use that harmonize thing. Okay, for the duration of the spell, the user can transform back and forth. So during that 15 minutes you got the spell running, you can transform back and forth between your animal and normal shape. That's kind of cool. So you could turn into a spider, crawl underneath the door, turn back into a person, investigate. Somebody comes by, you turn back into a spider, hide in the corner. I like that. Okay. Each transformation takes 1 melee round, and the caster can do nothing during that transformation, right? Okay. If the caster casts more than 1 point, in other words, stacks, if the caster stacks this spell, for each point stacked, he can alternate between that many shapes. So if you sacrifice 3 animals during 3 separate meld form rituals, and you stacked 3 points of Proteus, you could transform into any of those 3 creatures plus yourself during the duration of the spell. Could be handy. Okay, Purification Ritual. This ritual cleanses female trolls who have birthed a leader of Trollkin. Did not know that was an issue. Normally, a female troll gives birth normally when a female troll gives birth to Trollkin, they give birth to Trollkin in all future pregnancies. That contradicts the bestiary, which says that half of troll pregnancies result in Trollkin. Maybe they're trying to get to something with this spell, which it does. It certainly sets up a whole series of issues. If a female troll gives birth to Trollkin, she's going to be shunned. She's now unclean, and all she can do is produce Trollkin. So she is second-class troll, right? But this spell allows her to get back into the hierarchy, if you will. Female who undergoes this ritual and avoids pregnancy for a full year is considered cleansed and can now give birth to normal dark troll children, though there's no guarantee because, again, 50% of births produce Trollkin. Unless you've already given birth to Trollkin, in which case it's 100%. I don't like that. I don't like that. I guess I do understand the ritual purification deal to get rid of the what's the word? To become unclean, to become cleansed. I get that. And the whole social dynamic, this unless you're cleansed, you're automatically giving birth to Trollkin, but all births half of all births produce Trollkin. That conflict, I'm not sure how I like that or will deal with it. Okay. Purify Water. This spell causes all particulate matter in a 3 by 9 by 9 meter volume of water to settle to the bottom, I guess. Okay. I would assume that's assumed, I guess. It does not work on living tissue, so all the fish swimming around there, for that matter, plankton and other microscopic creatures, or any material that's dissolved, like salt water. It won't change salt water to pure water. Okay, this spell can also create cult holy water by casting it upon a small volume, 1 meter or less, of specially prepared seawater. It is a water spell, so that's probably why it's tied together. But that's kind of cool. I like that. And that's all of the spells from N to P. And it wasn't quite as long as I thought it was going to be. Happy gaming.